I'm Nate Eaton here in the East Idaho News newsroom, and I'm so happy that Trina Clegg is here with me tonight. Trina and I have known each other for 6 years. Mm-hmm. And sadly, we met under horrible circumstances. But I will say that Trina has been so faithful in her resolve to find her grandson. She is the grandson of this adorable little boy behind us, DeOrr Kunz, who disappeared almost 6 years ago. Next week, 2 weeks from now.
Yep, the 10th of July.
And of course, the monitor just went off, but that's okay. We'll keep talking. So, for those of you that have been following the case, just a quick recap. It was 2015 July when DeOrr went camping with his mother and father and his great grandpa, Trina's father, and a friend of great grandpa named Isaac. And they went camping about an hour and a half, 2 hours away from Idaho Falls, and DeOrr disappeared. And since then, there's been no sign of DeOrr. Nobody's been arrested. Nobody has been charged in connection to his disappearance. And of course, everybody wants him to be found. 6 years. Can you believe it?
No. It's been a long time since we talked about it. But no, it's still so real. You come across things, as the anniversary gets closer and closer, it's a little tougher, it gets a little sadder. It's not like it's not sad, but it's just, you start having to plan, going back up there, doing like we do every year, just kind of going up there and figuring out, are we going to continue to search? What do we need to do? And just, trying to figure out what we've missed. Yeah, it's tough.
So take me back to that weekend in July of 2015. What do you remember? You were here in Idaho Falls, and how did things play out for you that weekend?
Well, so it started, I was at work. I started getting tons of phone calls from my daughter, just kept going off. I had just started a new job, so I tried to ignore it. But then when it just kept going and going, I finally walked outside, and I'd get some reception and then it'd die, and then I'd get some, and so I didn't know if something had happened with my dad. My dad was on oxygen. He had prostate cancer. The cancer was spreading, breathing problems, and so that's what I thought it was about. So when I finally did reach Jess, and we were able to talk, that was one of the things, is Grandpa okay? But I didn't know that the worst was going to come.
But you knew they went camping.
Oh, yes.
They had told you
Yep.
we were going to go camping. And
Yeah.
from what I remember, it was kind of a last-minute camping trip.
Yeah, my dad and I had talked about going back up to DeOrr, where we had been when I was a kid, and he really wanted to share that with Jessica. The kids wanted me to go, wanted the family to go. He knew he was getting sicker, and so unfortunately I wasn't available to go up there. My plans were to go Saturday after I had an engagement already going. So my intentions were to go up Saturday after it. It was just really quick. He's like, I want to go, and my dad, once he said I want to go, it was I want to go now. And it started happening quick. It was need groceries, need to get the camper fixed, all that kind of stuff was really, really quick of
getting everything ready.
Dad wanted to go. He was going.
And Jessica was close to your dad because she cared for him, right?
Right, yeah. So she was one of his caregivers, and I asked Jessica if she would please go. She wanted to go, but I just had to, please, Jess, I really want you to go. I need you to make sure Grandpa's going to be okay. He was going to take Isaac with him, but I didn't know Isaac well enough to know whether if something happened with my dad. And so Jessica decided to go and with Vernal and take the baby. And so I was really excited that they were going to have that opportunity to go up there and go somewhere where my dad and I spent a lot of time as a kid. And
so originally it was going to be your dad and Isaac.
Originally, yes.
And then Jessica said, I'll go, and Vernal, DeOrr, agreed to come with baby DeOrr.
Right.
So they're putting together a last-minute camping trip. You're probably not thinking much of it because Grandpa's been there before, you've been there. It's not It's kind of out of the way for those not familiar with the area, but if you've been there, it's not really out of the way.
Right.
So you're at work, and was that on Friday when you
That was
started
a Friday.
That was Friday. You're getting the calls, and when she finally got through to you, what did she say?
She just, you could tell by her voice that something was really wrong, and she just said, "Mom, we can't find baby DeOrr." And I just like, I knew the area because it comes in and it cul-de-sacs, that I was like thinking he's got to be right there somewhere in that area, Then I worried about the creek. There's also the very steep hill, and I thought, I wonder if he could have went up there and fallen over where the creek is, where it's really steep. But I just thought, well, as soon as I get in my car and I get halfway there, they'll call me and tell me that he's been found.
Yeah,
But-
which you're hoping to be that they'll find him eventually, but
Right.
you still wanted to get up there.
Oh yeah. And through the whole time, I ran from home, from work. I ran home. I grabbed a pair of tennis shoes and a sweatshirt, and headed up there. I remember hitting speeds up through that area, anywhere from 90 to 110 miles an hour, just trying to get there. You hit those dead spots, and there's no cell phone reception. I was trying to call Lemhi County to try to get an update because I couldn't get a hold of Jess, just to try to find out, did they have people in the area? Had they located him? Just trying to get any information, and all they just kept telling me is that they had search and rescue on their way to the location.
So you finally get up there, and it was the sun already setting, or was it?
No.
It was mid-afternoon.
Yeah, it was still mid-afternoon.
And he's still missing.
Still missing.
And,
Still missing.
And what do you do from there?
When I first got out of the car, you could just tell that a lot of the search and rescue had started arriving, and I can't remember if some of the sheriffs were there or not. But as I got out of the car, I expected to walk up, because Jessica and DeOrr and my dad, they were kind of by where the picnic table was. And as I started walking towards Jessica, I could just see the look on her face, and it just still breaks my heart. But I just knew that he hadn't been found, and she was just in complete panic. They made him stay right there because they didn't want them out searching in case they had found him, they could get him back to him. But and none of them at the campground understood that. DeOrr couldn't understand that. My dad couldn't understand that. My dad couldn't have got out and went and searched, but he just felt like he could have been in his truck driving and at least looking. But yeah, it was pretty stressful. And, just as the amount of people started coming in, the panic, I got really panicked because Jess had told me that, when he went missing, it was about his nap time. And so I was really worried that he may have wandered off and maybe sat down and fell asleep. So as people start coming in, they're starting to park in the area and pull onto the sagebrush. And I just became in complete panic that maybe that was the case, that he was laying down and had fallen asleep and people were going to run over him. So I was just like, why are we letting so many people in? There's, they're parking everywhere. And so that was another big thing, is worried about that. Really, he was laying down and someone was going to run him over.
Run ahead, and he'd fallen asleep. And I can only imagine. I've got 3 kids of my own. If one of them is missing, and you tell me to stay put, that's the last thing I want to do.
Right.
I want to be out searching
Right.
with them. So you're up there, and they're doing this search. Nightfall comes. Nothing.
Nothing.
Did you even sleep?
No, I didn't. I don't think after that happened, I don't think that I actually slept until I think it was Tuesday night.
Oh.
So.
You mentioned Jessica's demeanor. What was Vernal's demeanor?
Just the same thing, just very, I need to go look for my son. He was in panic. DeOrr's usually pretty mellow. You could just see that, it was like he was stir crazy. He just could not sit there, and he kept saying, I got to go try to find my son, and that was really hard to know that they were just kind of locked down to that area. I mean, I know why, but
Yeah.
you know, they needed them to be right there in the event that they did find him. So.
And what about Isaac and your dad, Grandpa Bob? How were they acting?
Isaac, I don't know. Isaac came up and started trying to talk to me, and I really didn't want to talk to him. I really didn't want to talk to anyone much, you know, but he come up and was trying to show me some mushroom that he had found, and, you know, I said, I don't care about that mushroom. I want to find my grandson, you know, and so I was really snippety with him, and that kind of just, you know, he didn't talk to me much through. My dad just, when I seen him, you know, he did cry a little, and I just said, Dad, what happened? What, you know, and and he's like, I don't know. He was right there. He was right there in the dirt. He was playing in the dirt. And I was like, okay, so.
Yeah, you don't want to talk about mushrooms.
Yeah,
That's the last thing you want to talk about.
I could care less about the mushroom.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And what? So Grandpa said he was playing there in the dirt. And what did Jessica and DeOrr say, DeOrr Senior, about what had happened?
We really didn't, like, when we first got there, we didn't really get into a lot of what happened. You know, I just kind of walked with Jess a little, and where was the last place we seen him? Where were you guys? You know, we couldn't do a lot, because, you know, they wanted them to stay right there. But I did, you know, talk to them. Where was the last place we seen him? You know, where were you guys? That's just really some of the basic. We didn't get into a lot of being able to actually walk with them and try to, you know, where was the last place that we seen him? Where were you? Until, you know, really, I think it was that Sunday that they let them kind of start helping grid search and things like that.
And what was the story they told you? I think it's the same thing they told me when you all came here, was they went to go look at the fish and thought that he was with Grandpa, and Grandpa thought that DeOrr was with the parents.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I know that baby DeOrr would have wanted to stay with my dad, because my dad had candy. And, you know, DeOrr and my dad, baby DeOrr and my dad were really close. You know, when Jessica took care of him, she brought him every day, you know, and my dad would say, that boy is so smart. That little boy is so smart. You know, he would sit and sing Mickey Mouse and dance. And, you know, my dad just thought that was the greatest thing in the world. And so I know that they did bring candy back from the store when they went there. And my dad confirmed that many times. Dad, you know, and he's like, all he wanted to do is he wanted to come back and get candy.
Is there ever any doubt in your mind, because this has come up, that DeOrr was up there?
Absolutely not. I have personally, because in the beginning there was so much stuff that was going on that, you know, I mean, I had everyone trying to convince me that he never made it up there. And I went over to Isaac's house and I knocked on the door, and he and I sat and had a conversation, just the two of us. And I said, Isaac, you have to tell me, was the baby up there? And Isaac told me face to face, yes, baby DeOrr was up there. Okay, when was the last place you seen him? And he's like, well, around the campfire that morning, and then when they come back from the store, he was there. So I know 100% that he was up there. He came back from the store in Ledor with them, and so I know 100% in my heart that he was up there, and even after the store, he was in the campground.
So for those of you kind of trying to piece together the timeline, they got up there really late Thursday. Early Friday, maybe like midnight-ish. It was dark, they go to bed. Friday, they had to run down to the store, which is about 7 miles, would you say, from the campsite? Run down to the store, grab some food, including some candy, come back up to the campsite, and that's when he was disappeared. So, and the sheriff has told me that he believes that DeOrr was up there. And you know, you've said it, Isaac has told us that. It was on the Monday, I believe, that you all came down here to talk about what happened, and that's when we sat down with Jessica and DeOrr, and they explained it. And from there, the story kind of blew up. Mm-hmm. It became a nationwide story, and what was that like for you guys and for Jessica and DeOrr? Because the spotlight really focused in on them.
Yeah. Well, and I guess it was really hard to see that, because our whole primary focus with that was to get people to help us find the baby. And through that whole process, it became an attack on our families, both sides of our families. And it was really painful because the focus of what we set out to do with trying to find the baby, getting people to help us go up there to search, and we'd have people coming out of the woodworks, yeah, we want to help, we want to do this, but then the story just kept twisting and twisting, and Jessica had killed him, DeOrr had killed him, my dad had killed him, Isaac had killed him, he was adopted out, there was so much stuff that just whirlwinded, and so it got so hard because it wasn't, I felt for so long it wasn't about baby DeOrr anymore. It was about, let's just twist this and make it about Jessica and Vernal and my dad and Isaac, and the focus was being pulled away from the baby. And I mean, even the sheriff has said if all that bull crap had have just subsided, there's so much more work that they could have done, and they still do, but it took so much time from them having to deal with all that kind of stuff.
I hadn't seen anything like it. I mean, there were memes of Casey Anthony next to Jessica. Mm-hmm. There was all sorts of vitriol coming toward them, to the point that the sheriff, within days did an interview and said, please calm down the rhetoric on social media. So days and days are going by. Was there, at what point did your mindset kind of, or did it ever switch from, we're going to find him, to, I don't know if we're going to find him?
I was, and I'm still hopeful that we will have resolution. I don't know what that will be. I still don't know. There's been nothing that can identify that he has passed away. So I still live day by day that, he could be out there. I don't know. It's super hard. We just pray every day, and you have a lot of people that have had situations where a child has gone missing and they've recovered them, whether, they've passed away or, it's been murder or whatever. And they have some kind of closure. There's no closure. There never is, and the time passes, but it's still the same. Still the same. Still the same, and I'm sure you've gone through every sort of emotion and every sort of what if possibility. Mm-hmm. Have there been any, sit Jessica and Vernal down and say, all right, tell me the truth conversations? I mean, I did, and I even had to tell the sheriff at one point. I said I had got to the point where there was so much going on that I had myself convinced that I was going to take them up to Ledor, all 4 of them, and I was going to stand there and hold them at gunpoint until someone told me the truth.
Wow.
And so, and everyone said, Trina, your own daughter. And I said, my own daughter, my own father. I was looking for resolution, and it didn't matter what I had to do. But if anyone sits and says, oh, I've never thought of that, they're crazy. I mean, I had thought about everything that you could possibly do. I've sat down with Jessica and pretty much told her, I'll disown you. You need to tell me, I mean, we have had heated conversations, I mean, my dad passed away and it's been 2 years, even on his deathbed, I was begging him, Dad, if you know something, I'm begging you, what, if you know anything of what happened up there that day, it's a matter of days before you pass away. Don't take this to your grave if you know anything. And tears had run out of his eyes, and he's like, I lost track of him. He's like, he was playing in the dirt. And I said, what do you mean, Dad? And he's like, he was playing in the dirt, and I was watching the mountains, and I was watching the eagles, and then he was gone. Mm. And so that was on his deathbed, and I truly believe that my dad had no knowledge of what had happened. I am of the belief now that Jessica and Vernal and my dad, and I just don't know much about Isaac, so that's a really hard one because I've never had an in-depth conversation with Isaac.
And you're saying you're of the belief now that Jessica and Vernal, DeOrr Sr., and your dad don't know what happened?
Correct.
What do you think happened?
I don't know. I hate it. I hate the thoughts that go through my mind. But for some reason, and I'll just be straight, I really think Isaac had something to do with it. It's hard for me to say that because he's an outsider of the family, and I don't want it to seem like I'm trying to push it outside of my family. But there's just something that time and time again, I have nightmares, and in these nightmares, it's Isaac. And I don't know what that's about. I don't, you know. It may be that Isaac's innocent. I don't know. But for some reason, in these nightmares and night tremors and things that wake me up, it's Isaac. It's Isaac running through, like down in the area of the creek.
You said you went to his house and talked to him the one time. Is that the only time you've had any sort of real conversation with him?
I've a couple times I've had conversations with him. I ran into him after my dad passed away and just asked him, you know, why he wasn't at the funeral. You know, they were pretty good friends, and he just said he didn't feel like that was a good place for him, nor that he was wanted there.
I want to ask you about the private investigators.
Yes.
Because that created a whole side story. You had the first one who joined the case voluntarily.
Frank Vilt.
Frank Vilt, thank you. From the area where Vernal's family was at.
Yes.
And he resigned a couple of weeks, month or two maybe, September,
Yeah.
saying that he didn't believe that Jessica and Vernal were being truthful and that they didn't want to offer a reward and to go on national media, you know, and talk about it. So what were your thoughts watching all of that play out and having him join the case?
With Frank, it was so brief, but the reward thing wasn't about that we were okay with it or not okay with it, but we were listening to the police. We were listening to the FBI, and we were told, no, don't offer rewards, don't do anything like that. And so we were following what we were told to, is not do any of that. We were telling people, if you want that, you need to call Lemhi County. You know, any money that was trying to be raised for rewards or anything like that, we were advised to make sure that they called Lemhi County. I don't know a lot about Frank. I talked to him a little, and he did say that he didn't feel like that they were being honest, but I don't know what he meant by it. You know, I mean, I don't know.
So he was on it, as you said, very short, kind of at the beginning and then off. But then Philip Klein joined the case. Now, Philip Klein, if you are familiar with this, very big personality, isn't afraid to talk about the case, go on camera. And you all, I mean, I believe at the beginning you had heard how good he was and you raised money to hire him, right?
Yes.
There's like a spaghetti dinner?
Yeah, well, we did like it wasn't spaghetti, it was like
A party,
Dutch oven.
Dutch oven on DeOrr's birthday, right? Or there was something?
In January, it was in January.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you raised the money, and then he comes out and starts dropping bombshells, I guess you could say. And one of them was, he said publicly on camera, I don't even know if he had told your family first, that he believed Jessica knew where DeOrr was. So you're watching all this. What's your thought as this PI's coming out and saying all of this stuff?
When we got him to the case, someone had told me about him, and so we made contact. I did raise a large amount of money to pay him. When he came to town, I was ecstatic to meet him, to listen to him, to know all of his experience, and I honestly was just like so grateful that he was there. He did tell us, you're probably not going to like some of the things that come up, and I'm like, I'm okay with that. I felt that it couldn't get any worse. And honestly, it was like, I have nothing to hide, so what, you know? But as things started progressing, there was a few things that kind of shocked me, and I don't know what to say. I mean, I was excited for him. There's a lot of things that happened that I can't believe we paid that kind of money to get treated like that. And just some of the things that got said about our family, Vernal's family, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was a little shocking. The comment that he made that Jess knew where the baby was, where baby DeOrr was what I kept saying is how come you do not share the entire conversation? And there was many times that happened, that we were having conversations, but he would cut bits and pieces out of it to make us look so awful. And I confronted him and was like, why don't you, from the minute that we have the conversation to the end of the conversation, and quit cutting out what you want out of it. So he and I butted heads quite a bit.
And the conversation Trina's referring to is that you all agreed to talk to him and have the conversations recorded.
Yes.
So Trina sat down with him, your dad did, Isaac did? I believe Isaac did.
I can't remember.
But definitely DeOrr and Jessica did. And then Mr. Klein would post some of these on social media, short clips. Mm-hmm. And then he said that he would release all of the recordings when he withdrew from the case. That hasn't happened yet, and he's no longer involved in the case. So anyway, that's a question for him. But that kind of, for a time there, seemed to change the focus, as you mentioned earlier, from DeOrr to what's he saying, what's Philip saying. And then you have David Marshburn, who came, and that was about, 2 years ago now? Mm-hmm. Tell me about him.
He's amazing. David is amazing. David's still working on the case. David works on it on a very regular basis. We are still in very, very good relationship with David. We do know that he is trying to work something out to come up here again very soon. We know that David will do everything that he can for baby DeOrr. He's straightforward with us. We have a good relationship with him, but he's also, just like all the sheriffs and everyone, that if anything comes up and he believes that any of us, both sides of the family, have anything to do with it, that it ends there. And, I'm okay with that. I mean, if something comes up that they can point at, they've got proof, I guess, that someone did something to baby DeOrr and baby DeOrr's not alive anymore, or whatever has happened, and it has to go that way, it will go that way, and I'm okay with that. I mean, the truth had come out, and we're just grateful that he's still working the case. He's putting a lot of new things in it. He's got a lot of good things about to happen for us, I think. So,
are there any rumors out there that you want to clear up that you've heard? I know it's been 6 years, and there were a lot in the beginning, and it kind of has mellowed down now. But or anything that you want the public to know?
Yeah, the baby DeOrr is still missing, and our families are still every day trying to figure out what happened. It's not going to stop. I mean, we will definitely do everything we can until, and I said until the day we all die. We've lost 2 grandpas through this, and we, both sides of the family thought, okay, when grandpas get up there and to heaven, maybe we'll get an answer, and we still don't have that answer. And so, I don't know.
Does Jessica still talk about DeOrr does it talk about him at all, like in present tense, or do you all still talk about him?
Oh, yeah, quite a bit. We just, there was a phone that Jessica had that had a bunch of pictures and videos. Well, for some reason, it was an iPhone and it got locked. And late last week or early this week, we actually got a bunch of those pictures. And we've been sharing them back and forth, and they're just priceless, and because there's several pictures that came out that we really didn't want out into the public, and there's 3 or 4 of them that just got shared with me, and they are so priceless, and you forget, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I remember that was so great. And it's Jessica and I, and all 3 of the kids, and we're all together, and we're playing in the sand and water, and it's just like, wow, you forget some of that good stuff. So yeah, I mean, we still talk about it. We still, at my house, there's still some of his toys there that we have put up, and I mean his pictures are all over the house, and so yeah, he's still a big part of everything that we do.
I remember talking to you either the night that the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children released that sketch 2 or 3 years ago of what he would look like at that time. Did that surprise you with seeing that image? Because I see DeOrr like this, and I don't know if he were to walk down the street today if I'd know it was him.
Right.
Does that make sense? Do you ever think that he's what? He's 8 now?
Yeah.
And you last saw him when he was 2.
Well, and it's crazy because I do have 2 younger grandkids, and one of the grandkids, he reminds me of that age enhancement, and sometimes it's a little eerie. So I think that they're pretty close with that. You know, I look at the little guy that he resembles, and I'm like, wow, that is kind of crazy. And it, you know, there are times that, you know, this grandson will do something, I'm like, wonder if he makes the same, you know, facial expressions. But yeah, there's truth to it. You know, if he went walking right past me, I don't know that I would recognize him unless it was like, wait a sec, he looks like one of my other grandkids, my other blonde boys. So,
and I'm sure it's cases like Elizabeth Smart that you just keep in your mind. How do you remain hopeful? How do you keep that optimism in your soul?
You know, it's hard, and as the years pass, you know, I remember going back and it was like the days, and then it was weeks, and then it was months, and then it was years, but now it's years, you know, and it's like years just keep mounting. But I mean, I'm still hopeful that there'll be answers, especially with David Marshburn coming to the case after everything had happened with the other PIs. When David came in, he's very good at what he does, but he's also very straightforward that, you know, he will find the answers at all costs, no matter what. And so having people like that still on our side, you know, we have a lot of people. There's some really good friends that I've gained through it. The gal, so her name's Rachel, and she helped do a bunch of the stuff and fundraising to help all the billboards go up. And her and I still talk, you know, I mean, she sends me messages and we still talk. And so there's as much bad publicity, there was a lot of good people that came together too. So we're still really close with a lot of them.
I will say one of the most awful things that happened during all this, obviously losing DeOrr's the most, but was when you were parked at the state fair. And this is just an example that for the longest time you had on your back window to tell people about it, what happened.
Yeah, so it was one wish, one dream, and it was to bring baby DeOrr. It was just something that I felt driving around that people would be like, oh my gosh, is he still missing? Or, you know, just bring up his name. And one night when I was at the state fair, we went to the demolition derby and come back, and there was people sitting around my car, and I was like, oh, well, when I went to go unlock my car, it didn't make the same sound. I was like, wait a sec, that's weird. And as we come around, someone has shattered the back window out of my car. And it was, you know, it was awful because it was like the window's replaceable, you know, and I'm like, they didn't do anything to me because and I didn't pay for it to get fixed or anything. People in the community came forward and helped and redid the vinyl and redid all this stuff. But it was what they did to baby DeOrr, you know? I mean, why do something like that? I don't get it, you know? It was like, it's just a car. But it was, my emotion was why would you ever hurt that baby? You know, I mean, what did that poster and vinyl on the back of my window do to you? So, you know, and that was hard. But, you know, there's other things that had happened, you know, along the way. In the very beginning, I walked into a convenience store and I had a guy look at me dead straight in the face and say, you know what, I should take you out and beat the crap out of you and leave you on the side, you know, in a gutter, just like you did to your grandson. And I was like, wow, you know, and I walked back out in my car and I put my hands on my head, you know, my head in my hands and just bawled and bawled. And I was like, you know, 100% that you weren't there, that you would never ever do anything like that to any of your grandkids. So get your crap together, get out of the car, go back in the store, get what you were getting, and just be okay, you know. And so, you know, there was a lot of mean things that happened. But
is there anything that you want to add? Anything you want to say? Anything you want to tell these people watching?
No, just thanks for the support for baby DeOrr, and just know that David Marshburn is a man of his word, and he will be back to help us, and we're grateful for everyone that's still helping us look for baby DeOrr, and you know, that says their prayers. And just remember, July 10th is coming up, and we need your support and love.